Allen Lund Company has new offices in Ogden, Utah and Indianapolis, Indiana. Check allenlund.com to reach them.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
Distracted driving is a growing problem in America, and local, state, and federal officials are looking for ways to combat the problem. In Georgia, one office partnered with the state's Department of Public Health on a document called Georgia Traffic Safety Facts Distracted Driving, and that document says a lot about the scope of the problem. I'll talk with Tanya Renaud of the Georgia Governor's Office of Highway Safety. OOIDA is hosting its Truck to Success seminar in October. We've been offering an extensive preview of the seminar over the past few weeks. Today, we'll have an encore of Scott Thompson's conversation with Louis Pugh, Andrew King, and Charles Sperry of OOIDA about what a Truck to Success participant will learn. And finally, over the years, we've reported several times on communities that have prevented truckers from parking their rigs at their homes. One recent example is in Florida, where 2 communities changed their rules after many years. Now, some of those truckers are fighting back, and it's been a struggle. I'll talk with one of the people involved, small business trucker Natalia Melian. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today. The attorneys general of 24 states are calling on the Environmental Protection Agency to deny California's request to impose stricter emission standards. California is asking for a preemption waiver for its Advanced Clean Fleets rule. If the EPA grants it, all new medium and heavy-duty vehicles sold in the state would need to be zero tailpipe emission trucks by the year 2036. The attorneys general say granting the waiver would violate a number of federal laws and statutes. California's Advanced Clean Fleets rule went into effect earlier this year for drayage operations, government fleets, and high-priority fleets with 50 or more vehicles, but it's not being enforced yet. That's because the state has yet to receive the approval it needs from the federal government. Several dozen Volvo trucks are being recalled. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says improperly tightened lug nuts in certain 2025 VN and VHD models can allow the wheel to detach, increasing the risk of a crash. For affected truck owners, it's an easy fix, one that dealers will make free of charge. Owner notification letters go out in November. In the meantime, if you have questions, contact Volvo Trucks Customer Service. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has announced more than $140 million in grant money for CDL training. About $88 million of that total will support commercial vehicle safety efforts on the state level. The rest will provide financial assistance to states and others so they can make improvements to their CDL programs. That includes things like reducing wait times, implementing regulatory requirements, combating human trafficking, and ensuring compliance with FMCSA regulations. The Federal Highway Administration is sending out more than $800 million in emergency relief funds to 36 states, Guam, and Puerto Rico. The money will support transportation infrastructure repairs in the wake of natural disasters there. This is just the agency's latest round of emergency funding this year. Back in January, some $729 million was issued to 34 states. There will not be a government shutdown next week. Congressional leaders came to an agreement on Sunday on a short-term spending bill that will fund federal agencies through mid-December. The temporary spending bill will keep funding at its current levels while lawmakers work on a long-term agreement. But an additional $231 million was included to bolster the Secret Service after 2 assassination attempts against former President Trump and to help with the presidential transition, whoever wins, among other things. A new report from the Transportation Intermediaries Association, or TIA, says the trucking industry is under siege by fraud. The State of Fraud in the Industry report provides a detailed examination of the current state of fraud in the industry. 8 types of fraud were highlighted in the survey, including spoofing, unlawful brokerage scams, fictitious pickups, phishing, and identity theft, among others. Truckload freight is overwhelmingly the primary target of fraud, with 98% of respondents identifying it as the most vulnerable mode. And the average gross cost of fraud reported by respondents was more than $402,000, with an approximate per-load cost of nearly $41,000. The TIA report emphasizes that the rise in fraud is not just a financial burden, it also increases the cost of goods, affecting the entire supply chain and ultimately impacting consumers. The number of trailer orders gained ground last month, but is still far behind last year's totals. ACT Research reports that 7,700 units were ordered in August, while up about 500 units from July. That's 40% lower compared to August of last year. ACT said more people are canceling orders and that the number of trailers being built is far outpacing the orders coming in. A bill with implications for truck drivers that was introduced more than a year ago continues to gain support. Congressman Timothy Kennedy is a 200th co-sponsor of H.R. 4963, otherwise known as the Tax Fairness for Workers Act. For truck drivers, a bipartisan bill would return the right of company truck drivers to utilize a per diem tax deduction. OOIDA is on the list of supporters. In support of a previous version of the bill, Association President Todd Spencer wrote that the elimination of the per diem for company drivers has, quote, unfortunately increased the tax exposure for many hardworking Americans who make their living behind the wheel of a truck, end quote. A Senate version of the bill introduced by Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania has 40 co-sponsors. You can learn more about the Tax Fairness for Workers Act with details for contacting your lawmaker at fightingfortruckers.com. Rhode Island is the latest state to deploy weigh-in-motion technology. The state DOT says it's installing a weigh-in-motion system along 10 lanes of the Washington Bridge in Providence. Officials say the data they get will be used to monitor overweight wheel, axle, and gross vehicle weight loads. Several other cities like New York and states like Tennessee have deployed similar technology. The Rhode Island DOT says the Washington Bridge carries more than 96,000 vehicles a day. Mark your calendars. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance has announced the dates for its enforcement blitzes next year. International Road Check comes first. It'll run for 3 days starting May 13th, 2025, during which time certified law enforcement personnel across the U.S., Mexico, and Canada will be conducting routine inspections at weigh-in inspection stations, temporary sites, and mobile patrols. Operation Safe Driver Week comes next. It'll run for 7 days starting July 13th. The focus will be on unsafe driving behaviors, and CVSA's Operation Air Brake program will hold 2 safety campaigns next year. Brake Safety Week starts on August 24th, and there will be a surprise one-day brake safety enforcement initiative that will go unannounced. And finally, a new survey pinpoints how truck stops are responding to the needs of female truck drivers. In collaboration with Women in Motion, Trucker Path spoke to female truck drivers to find out which amenities they look for to ensure safety at a truck stop. Proper lighting is a theme throughout the survey. The top truck stop amenities to ensure safety included lighted parking, lighted bathroom access, a lighted lounge area, and lighted shower and laundry facilities with 24/7 access. Respondents also placed a priority on security being present on site 24/7. Trucker Path identified 320 truck stops within its network that have at least one of those amenities. Of those, nearly all have lighted parking. More than half have lighted bathroom access. Of the truck stops that completed the survey, 14 offer all 7 amenities female truck drivers are looking for. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. TA Petra is accepting nominations for its annual Citizen Driver Award. The program honors drivers for leadership, good citizenship, safety, health and wellness, and community involvement. Winners have a TA Petra location named in their honor and have $2,500 given to their charity of choice. You can learn more or make a nomination at the website citizendriveraward.com. The deadline for nominations is October 7th. Again, that website, citizendriveraward.com. Marty Ellis and OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker, are at the TA Truck Stop in Walton, Kentucky. That's located at exit 175 off Interstate 71 and 75. Stop in, say hi to Marty, and join OOIDA for a $10 discount. Next, Tanya Renaud of the Georgia Governor's Office of Highway Safety discusses a distracted driving report. Scott Thompson gets some insight into the upcoming Truck to Success seminar, and I'll find out what one Florida community is doing to truckers from small business trucker Natalia Melian. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Distracted driving is a growing problem in the United States of America, and local, state, and federal officials are looking for ways to combat the issue. You're listening to Landline Now, and I'm your host, Mark Reddick. Welcome back to the program. In the state of Georgia, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety recently partnered with the state's Department of Public Health to issue a document called Georgia Traffic Safety Facts: Distracted Driving, and it contains a bundle of information on the scope of the distracted driving problem. To get some insight, I talked recently with Tanya Renaud, the Traffic Records Coordinator for the Georgia Governor's Office of Highway Safety.
So the focus is distracted driving. We produce the Georgia Traffic Safety Facts along with the Department of Public Health's codes program. So we have various focus areas, for example, motorcycle injuries and deaths. We have older drivers, younger drivers. So this one focuses on distracted driving. So any form of distracted driving, whether it be actions done in the car that would make you distracted, as well as, of course, the cell phone that we all think of when we think of distracted driving. So,
of course, and all the typical things of, reading something, trying to write something, looking in the back seat at a noisy kid.
Yeah, eating, talking.
All the basics.
Yeah.
What is, and this may seem obvious, but what is the goal in issuing this particular fact sheet?
So the main goal with the fact sheets is just to give a data-driven perspective of the issue of distracted driving. So in our document, we did do an observational study. So actual observations of drivers in motion in Georgia and the level of distracting. And those findings were, I think, relatively alarming, considering that unlike a seatbelt where, your entire drive, if you're wearing a seatbelt, if you're not, it's the whole time. Whereas distraction, it's for a moment, you come back, for a moment and you come back. So the fact that 1 out of 5 drivers were distracted is telling of how serious this issue is. So we just wanted to bring that to light with the data. Another thing is that when we were looking at crashes, about 53% of crashes are caused by distracted driving, involve a distracted driver. So either suspected or confirmed.
I'd like to talk about some of the key findings there. For example, you mentioned the 53% figure for the percentage of motor vehicle crashes that had some distraction involved. What were some of the other key findings listed in the fact sheet?
Some other key findings we have were, so the 30% of all serious injury crashes involved at least one confirmed or suspected distracted driver. We also have 76% of all distraction-related crashes involved at least one other vehicle. That's important because you think that's a threat to everybody. It's not just the people in the vehicle, or it's not just the distracted driver. It can be a pedestrian. It's other cars on the road as well. And that's 76% is high. And then since the hands-free law came into effect, the convictions for distracted driving have increased significantly as well.
In looking at the figures and in looking at the overall issue of distracted driving, is it worse in some parts of the state compared with others, or in comparison with the country overall, other states?
I think that though it's an issue nationwide, I do see more data pointing to metro areas, so more populated areas, whereas seatbelt use tends to be more of an issue in the rural areas from our findings, at least. But again, it's a growing issue. It's a problem everywhere. We are seeing it being even more of a disparity with the younger drivers too. They're having more distraction-related crashes, and I can only attribute it, and this was coming from my opinion, but to the cell phone use and texting and driving, or using media and driving. It's becoming normalized, which isn't a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to look a little bit further into that 53% figure, and I'm wondering, did the fact sheet break that down any further? For example, did it look at how many were confirmed to be distracted driving, how many were suspected of being, or was there any other breakdown of that figure?
Yes, so it's 4% confirmed and 49% suspected distraction related. And I know some people say, well, how does that, how is that figure viewed? And the problem with confirming, again, is an officer on scene after the fact. It's hard to confirm that that crash had a distracted driver, though they look at various factors of the crash, and that's how you come up with this suspected analysis or the suspected metric there.
Well, and I would think that there would be a certain degree of difficulty in nailing that down because in many cases, you're depending on the driver themselves to kind of self-report whether they were distracted. Is that something that you saw a lot in the figures you were gathering?
Yeah, we do see that. And then it's also, sadly, if there's a fatality or a serious injury, the awareness there might not even be there. Crashes happen in the blink of an eye. So it is definitely looking at the analysis of the crash, looking at how the post-crash analysis is constructed, that we can gauge if it was a suspected. And I think the suspected metric is pretty reliable. In fact, oftentimes I think it's underreported. So,
well, that makes a certain amount of sense. One of the figures I saw in there that caught my attention, 76% of all distraction-related crashes involved at least one other vehicle besides the distracted driver. Did you get any feedback in terms of why that's the case? Because I would think some of them would involve single vehicle crashes, people running off the road and all that. But is it just a matter, for example, that just with the traffic density, it's more likely?
I think that, and then also when a driver is distracted, they're not two moving objects are not being seen at once. So it's like if you're driving and the barriers there and everything, it's still there as you're going on, but you may not see that car that's turning. You may not see that pedestrian that's crossing the street. So those moving objects, it only takes one glance away from the dashboard or away from focusing that can cause a crash. I think people don't realize that it only takes a second with distracted driving. 1 second looking away from the road and you could, cause a crash. So.
In putting together all these figures, one of the things I was curious about, at the beginning, you mentioned a lot of examples of what constitutes distracted driving, but I'm wondering if you had a particular formal definition of distracted driving you worked with, or you were just depending on the examples to kind of define it.
We do. We developed a definition, and there's also the national definition of distracted driving. I cannot provide you with that. I'm going to read it. So it's, the distracted driving occurs when drivers divert their attention from driving tasks to focus on some other activity. This could be texting. However, it could also be manual, visual, or cognitive distractions. And then cell phone use can actually involve multiple, as you can imagine.
Okay. And you used three terms there, manual, visual, and cognitive. Again, that may seem to some extent obvious what you mean by those, but can you explain what types of behavior fall under each of those terms?
Yes. So for manual, you would think something like touching or holding a phone, eating or drinking, changing the controls on your navigation, your radio, things like that. Visual is the easier one to understand, looking away, looking at your phone, looking at a billboard perhaps. And then cognitive would be conversations, like you said, turning around and talking to the riders in the back seat, worrying about something or someone else and not having your mind on driving. So, and those are some of the ones that people think of less when they think of distracted driving. So.
One of the facts in there, again, that caught my attention, since the hands-free law took effect, and I'm reading here from the fact sheet, the number of distracted driving convictions processed by the Department of Driver Services continues to increase. And that seems kind of, on the surface, contradictory. I'm curious, is this simply showing that increased enforcement is going to bring in more violations, or does the figure show the actual frequency of distracted driving is increasing?
I think the actual frequency isn't increasing. When before the law, it wasn't as easy to convict these cases or follow up on them. So I think that's more what it is that the issue is continuing to increase or at least maintain. And now there's a method to convicting these cases, whereas before it was a little bit more difficult.
Something else, you cited a figure from the World Health Organization specifically regarding the use of mobile phones in crashes. Can you explain that figure and what it tells us?
Yes. So the World Health Organization, and it was 4 times more likely to be involved in a crash than other drivers. So they're showing that that because it impacts a driver's reaction time, that 4 times they're 4 times more likely to actually get in a crash because you're looking away from the road or you're not focusing on the road.
A lot of states have turned to require hands-free use. It's becoming much more common. In fact, I think maybe the majority at this point. Based on the figures you found, does it appear that hands-free requirements help?
We look at things from a safe system approach. So what that means is safer people, safer roads. We need to be proactive about EMS. So it's not a sort of a one-stop shop with the hands-free law, but I think that's an important part of prevention and sort of denormalizing it. Years ago, a seatbelt people felt was almost optional. We need people to realize that using your phone while driving isn't normal. It isn't okay. It's illegal. So I think that they do have an effect, though it will happen over time and have an increased effect over time.
There's a lot more figures in there that we could go over that are interesting to me. Certainly the figures for younger drivers, breakdowns by age and gender, and comparing distraction versus seatbelt use. I wish we had time to go into all those, but you've gathered a lot of information here about the scope of the problem, and it leads to kind of an obvious question to me. How do we fix this problem? Is that something that you can address?
So now, some of this would be speculation, of course, but like I said, there's more than one part to it. I think as far as vehicle technology has been a great help with those alerts that notify a driver when they're departing a lane or something like that. Safer speeds. If you're distracted, the faster you are going, the further distance you're driving while distracted. So I think there's more than one part to it. And then encouraging our younger drivers not to be distracted, normalizing not using your phone, pulling over when you have, something important to do on your cell phone. I think there's a lot of modeling that can be done with that, and encouraging people not to just automatically think that it's okay to use a cell phone when they're driving. And then even the little things like the conversations, eating, those things you don't really think of, realizing that can cause a danger. And that's why we try to put this information out there. When you hear data like 76% of these crashes include a car that isn't the distracted driver, it makes you think, well, this is affecting everyone, not just those of us who are driving. So I think there's a lot to it. I also think that since it is a growing problem, it's something that most states are focusing on, and it's important. It's an important topic.
Fantastic. Tanya, that's all I have. Thank you so much for the information. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time out of your day to meet with us.
That was Tanya Renaud, the Traffic Records Coordinator for the Georgia Governor's Office of Highway Safety, talking about a recent fact sheet produced by that office in conjunction with the state's Department of Public Health regarding distracted driving. If you'd like to read the fact sheet titled Georgia Traffic Safety Facts, Distracted Driving, we'll have a link at our website, landlinenow.com. Just click on the photo or headline at the top of the page and scroll down. That's where you'll find all the website links, email addresses, and phone numbers we mention on the show. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide.
Repair secured. Load assured.
Truckdown.com.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a cat scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget miss accuracy, weigh your truck on a cat scale.
Welcome back to Landline Now. In October, OOIDA is hosting its annual Truck To Success seminar, and over the next several weeks leading up to it, we're going to be walking you through a good portion of those sessions. Today, we're going over one of the foundational elements of starting a trucking business, creating a business plan. Walking us through that seminar today, Louis Pugh, Executive Vice President of OOIDA, and Andrew King, Assistant Director of the OOIDA Foundation. Andrew, Louis, good to see you. How you doing?
We're doing good. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. So again, we're talking about creating a business plan today, and to say this is important, maybe the most important thing, I guess would be an understatement here, right?
Yes, absolutely. And this is one thing that we stress, and usually this coming at the beginning of the seminar, we throw up some stats, and people's eyes get like, ooh, whoa. And that's basically the failure rate for those entering into the trucking industry, just to show the dangers of entering in. We talked about this a little bit before, just the cost and everything that is involved. There's a lot to it. So some of those stats are, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 20% of all new businesses entering into trucking will fail by their first year. Now, depending on what you're looking at, that number can be even higher. It can go as high as 30%. It just depends on which data source you're looking at. But by year number 5, over 50% have failed. And so if you have a room filled with 40, 50 people, and you think about all of them being company drivers and trying to become an owner-operator, over 50% of them being out of the business or being maybe a company driver again, that's kind of shocking, you know? And the number one reason is lack of sufficient capital. 2 is poor business management or no business management, really. And then the last one is that they don't have a plan of any sort. So those 3 things, they really kind of run together, because obviously if you were making a plan, you would realize how much capital you need and also what it might take to run a business and not just drive the truck.
And this is one of these things that there's no way you would know this unless you were to go through it or take this seminar, obviously. But this is something that it's not like anybody out there knows how to create a business plan, a successful one, much less than that. So this really is going to walk you through, right? Everything you need to know and everything you need to do.
Yes, absolutely. We go through the various elements of the business plan and we make it as simple as possible. You know, it doesn't have to be I think when people hear the word business plan,
it's intimidating.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very intimidating. You think you got to have all these pages worth of stuff and you got to write all this research. No, it's not that. I mean, it could just be some bullet points. The big thing is that you're doing a little bit of research or even just thinking through the process and realizing maybe just how difficult this will be and if it's really what you want to do.
Yeah. Are there people out there, and I think I already know the answer to this question, but are there people out there who start, go off on their own? Are there people out there who don't have any sort of business plan? There are, right? And that's not usually a recipe for success.
Unfortunately, there's probably more who don't than do in trucking. Like Andrew said, by year 5, 50% out of business. I feel like there's probably people that that's probably reportable in a way.
Yeah, there's no real way of knowing, but it's probably higher than that.
I mean, because we're asked all the time how many owner-operators are. Well, there's not really any real way to know how many owner-operators are. Yeah. So there's probably not really any real way to know how many really completely got a business. But lots and lots. And yes, unfortunately, lots. I mean, I've seen this my entire career, entire life. Unfortunately, so many people, they're really good truck drivers. They're not good business people. And, so that's the thing. And, I think our president, Todd Spencer, said it best. If you can't manage a little bit of money, like meaning if you are a person who struggle making your payments, your home payments, your electric bill, if you struggle with a little bit of money and driver wages, you're going to struggle a whole lot more when it comes to having a lot of money. So you have to be honest with yourself.
And you raise a great point because those are two different things, right? Driving a truck
Yes.
and having
Yes.
a business are two separate things, and they're very different.
Very, very different, require very, very much more time with one than the other. You know, if you buy a truck and you have a business, then everything's on you. I mean, start, stop. You know, whether that truck breaks, you know, you get to cancel, you have to cancel, miss things, whatever, because you're running your business or whatever. You're going to you got to come home on the weekends. If you don't have somebody at home and spend time doing paperwork, doing all these things.
That person's going to be you.
That person
Yeah.
is going to be you. You can't,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, we hear so many people, well, I can pay this person, do this, I can pay. When you start paying, you're going to find out real quick
That money's going to run out real quick.
money runs out quick. I tell people that trucking is a money saved business as opposed to a money made business. You have to figure out ways to do it cheaper to save money. And I don't mean haul freight cheaper. I mean make your cost cheaper to save money, to be more successful. Andrew, there's a really cool slide up that shows what the average company, like big carrier, cost per mile is compared to the average owner operator. And oh my.
Yeah.
And I tell people every time he throws that is you need to figure out how to get your number closer to their number.
Right.
Not that
Yes.
owner operator number, because that's where that's where your profit comes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to run through kind of the seminar, and obviously this is just a thumbnail sketch of what you're going to learn if you go, but I want to start with the mission statement, because I think this is an interesting part of a business plan that I think maybe a lot of people don't think about. A mission statement. Why is that important?
Well, it really summarizes exactly what you are trying to accomplish. It gives you a goal, a purpose, you know, and I just throw out an example of OOIDA or even the OOIDA Foundation. In a short mission statement, you understand exactly what we're about. We fight for the rights of all truckers, and if you do the foundation, it's also through research and education. That one sentence tells you a lot about me, and you need to understand that when you're becoming an owner-operator, there are there's hundreds of thousands of motor carriers. What is going to make you different from the next guy? So having something like a mission statement will help set you apart. It also gives you a goal and something to focus toward. So you're not just saying, well, I'm going to get my own authority. I'm going to run in every state. And I'm just going to run everywhere and haul everything. That's not a business plan. That's actually a really bad idea. And it goes to what Lou was just talking about of controlling your costs. You need to be realistic. And so having something like a mission statement can really put things in perspective.
I mean, do you have an example of, I mean, it's going to be different for everybody out there, I suppose, but just an idea of kind of what you're talking about?
Well, it really depends on, I guess, your scope of operation. You know, what are you going to do? Maybe you wanted to focus on heavy haul, for example. And so you make a mission statement that talks about this kind of product or service that you're going to provide in this area. It can be really short, and that really summarizes everything of what you're going to do after in your business plan.
Yeah, because it's not just about knowing your company and its limitations, also knowing the market that you're talking about here, Andrew, you're going to be operating in.
Look at other businesses, for example, you know, something even like Apple. It's a massive corporation, but they have a simple message, and that message tells you what they're about and what they're going to focus on. They're not going to do all these other things. They're going to focus on this.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that yourself in your own business plan. What exactly are you going to focus on? I'm not going to do all these other things. I'm not going to have all these different trailer types, especially being one truck. You know, what exactly am I going to focus on?
Let's run through, again, just a snapshot of what you'll learn here with creating a business plan. Marketing, I thought that was also interesting. That's something that you talk about during the seminar as well, right?
Yes. And that's a big one that probably most people don't think about, is that you are now needing to market yourself. You're a business, you're competing against all these other carriers. What is going to make you stand out against the next guy? And that can even be just the name of your company is one that I pick up on, because being in permits and licensing department for a time when I first started here, and you see some of the names of some of the carriers, and they have, you know, maybe it sounded cool at the time, but to me, I'm like, that's pretty dumb. And so, you know, honestly, if I'm a broker or shipper and I'm looking at between different people, and who are you going to choose? You're going to choose a guy with a dumb name, or are you going to choose someone that is a little bit more professional?
Andrew,
honestly, that's a real thing.
You want to call out some of those companies right now?
Well, yeah, right. But, you know, it's marketing yourself, you know, and how are you going to present yourself? Are you going to look professional and clean as much as you can, and just building those relationships with people on the dock and things like that? That's all part of marketing.
Yeah, and we talked about this last time, especially in this environment that's out there right now. Marketing, networking, that's super important, and getting your foot in the door is an important first step,
absolutely.
and that goes into what we're talking about here.
I would add too, you have to think about like the marketing and marketing yourself. The world we live in today, there's lots of stuff out there. There's lots of things. You got to think about what you put on social media and all these things because people can look at that stuff.
Yeah.
And will look at that stuff. And, I think everyone should be allowed to express themselves.
Sure.
But you want to think about how you express yourself.
You don't want to turn off half of your potential customers.
Exactly.
Or more than that.
You have
whatever
to think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
in today's world.
Cost of operations. This is huge. We talk about this all the time. You have to know your cost of operations. This is something you talk about when creating a business plan because I think this is probably the most important thing. Is that
it's where we spend the bulk of our time.
Yeah, okay.
And that in the session on creating your business plan, this is probably the most time intensive. And we just go through a few different operating ratios that can be really helpful for someone wanting to become an owner-operator, and that's the number one thing is knowing your operating ratio. So this is basically showing you how efficient you are at keeping your costs low while still generating income. And it's something that all the big carriers do, and they run usually around 95%, which is, for them, they can do that. But for a single truck owner-operator, you don't want to be near that because one breakdown, one little thing, and you are out. And it's basically the end of your business. So understanding what you're spending your expenses on, how can you cut those costs? How can you be smart with what you're purchasing, what you're doing, and can you make a return on investment on all of those things? So those are some of the stuff that we talk about on the cost of operations part. It is a huge, it's big. If you don't know what you're spending, how do you know what you need to be successful? And one of the stories I like to tell is just that first time we did the seminar, there was a couple people who came and I gave them a spreadsheet on how to kind of figure their cost of operations, and everything was in the red.
Yeah.
And they said, "Hey, is this working correctly?" So I went and I looked at their spreadsheet and said, "Yep." And their eyes were like, "Whoa, we had no idea. We are losing money when we're hauling freight." They were just picking up loads and going places. They had no idea what they were doing.
And a lot of people do that. Yeah. And I honestly don't blame them because they think, hey, I'm working. I'm making, money's coming in.
Generating revenue.
But they're not factoring that part in,
not
right?
Profit. You're not generating profit. You're generating revenue.
Yeah. And these are the things, again, that you talk about, and we talked about this last time, but being in the room with experts who know how to do this, you can get that personalized, basically guidance, right, from the people there about your particular operation. Louis, as we're talking about all this, and people may be on the fence here as they're listening, do I want to go to this? Do I not? Would it help me? In terms of business plans, what would you tell people out there?
100%. I didn't have a mission statement or anything about mission statement.
Yeah.
I just knew I wanted to.
But you made it.
I watched this documentary in the 70s called Smokey and the Bandit and about owning a truck. That's what I want to do when I grow up. So.
Great documentary.
Yeah, it's a great documentary. But they left a lot out.
Yeah, just a few things.
There's a lot to it. And you can't stress enough how important it is to have a business plan. I was going through 4-H and FA growing up, learned about farming and ag business and stuff like that. So I did know my cost of operations. I knew that I needed to make this kind of money to make. So I was fortunate there. But Andrew's right. Most of these people out here have no idea.
Truck to Success, 3 days, starting October 22nd in Blue Springs, Missouri. There's an in-person part of this. You can also do it online if you need to. Trucktosuccess.com is the website to go to, and deadlines are coming up faster than we would anticipate. So definitely get on board here and check it out. Andrew, Louis, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick break. Landline Now returns in just a moment.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
If you're running ultra-low sulfur diesel in your vehicle, make sure you are prepared and protected all winter long with Howes Diesel Treat, the #1 anti-gel product in North America from the 100-plus year trusted brand Howes Products.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. Over the years, we've reported several times on communities that have prevented truckers from parking their rigs at their homes. One recent example is in Florida, north of Miami, in two communities, Loxahatchee and the Acreage, where the rules were changed after many years during which truckers were able to keep their rigs at home. Now, some of those truckers are fighting back, and it's been a struggle. One of the people involved in that fight is Natalia Melian, who owns a small trucking business with her husband. I spoke with her recently about the community and the situation.
Well, it's basically one town in general. It just has different names on the portions, but we're all ruled under the same community. And we're a rural equestrian community. All properties are above an acre. We all have big lands. A lot of different diverse group of people are out here.
Now, this whole situation involves an ordinance that, as I understand it, is fining truckers in both Loxahatchee and the Acreage. Can you explain what specifically this ordinance calls for?
Yes. So before, all small business owners would move out here. We're talking about 20, 30 years ago. A lot of people even longer than that, some a little bit less. But many started their business from the ground out here in the Acreage and Loxahatchee. And all of a sudden in 2019, the code itself changed a little bit. They kind of played around with the wording of it, got it amended and stuff like that without letting the community know. And now we're not able to keep our trucks in the yards like we used to be. And that's affecting a lot of the businesses out here.
And again, these are not little lots. These are not city lots. These are lots with several acres, correct?
That is correct. All the lots out here are above an acre. So there are an acre and a quarter, all the way to 5 acres, 10 acres even.
Okay. What was the situation before the ordinance? Can you kind of talk about what it was like to own a trucking business there before this thing went into effect?
Well, just to give you an idea, we used to go by Lox Life. That was the stands that everybody talked out here. And it was basically, you live your life, I live mine. We don't get into each other's businesses. Everybody was just friendly. We all know each other. And now all of a sudden that's kind of changed around with all the new developments coming in.
Do you know why the town decided to do this?
So that's the problem that we've been trying to figure out for the past almost 5 years, is why was this change? And nobody's able to tell us why or who did it.
Huh. Well, how long have you parked your truck or trucks there at your home? I mean, how long has this been something that you've done as part of your life?
Part of my life since 2018. That's when we moved out here into Loxahatchee. However, like I said, there's people that have been here for 20-plus years. Actually, one of them is my good friend, Claire Dougal, and she's currently in a lawsuit against the county. She's been parking out here for 20-plus years, and she's very affected by this as she works local. Not the same issue that I have. My husband and my father-in-law, they're both truck operators, and we're over the road. So we don't really work locally. They're out for like 2 weeks at a time.
Okay. Well, without being able to park at your home, what are your options? I mean, have you found an alternative to parking there at this point?
We have not. As of right now, we haven't. The county suggested new lots to be open for truck yards and parking. However, that hasn't happened. They are, I heard, two currently being built. However, this look like truck stops. They're going to offer like daily parking. So we can't even guarantee that once they are fully completed, we even be able to use them. As we know, there's a big shortage of truck parking out here in the entire Florida, not just our community itself.
Now, I know that from reading other coverage of this, that you have looked pretty far out from where you live, a pretty extensive area, trying to find some kind of parking alternative. Can you talk about that a little bit? How far out have you looked?
So I started going all the way to Homestead, Florida. I know there's a couple yards down there. However, they had a similar problem like within where codes were changed and some of them got closed down. So it's hard to find. And those that I have been able to find are extremely expensive. They have a wait list of 6 months, and they do not offer any type of security. So you will be putting your truck there completely at your own risk. They're not responsible for any damage or theft. And I've looked all the way to Jacksonville. I've literally looked all Florida itself.
Well, and if I understand it, Jacksonville, that's way, way far away from you. That's up toward the north part of the state, isn't it?
It sure is. And I was actually looking at commercial properties out there since we've been thinking about maybe buying a commercial lot so we can continue to operate our business. However, all these commercial lots in Florida are about $1 million, and honestly, I cannot afford that. I'm a small business operator.
What will it do to your business if you face these fines, or have you faced them already?
It would most probably put me out of business just because the fines go at anywhere from $50 to $1,000 daily. So just imagine that. You get $50, let's say, which is the minimum that they put you on. You're going to be looking at a lot of money. $50 a day, that's pretty expensive.
Is this at a point yet where you might consider moving to another community that maybe doesn't have these particular rules where you could park on your property?
So that's the problem. We have been looking for that community. However, we haven't been able to find one.
In looking at some of the media reports on this, they indicate that you're going to be appearing, or some of your other neighbors who are in this situation are going to be appearing before a special magistrate sometime this summer over this situation. What is the process there, and can they change things?
So regarding that, I'm a little bit scared. I actually had my hearing on August 7th, and it was postponed till September. I honestly do not know what's going to happen. They're actually doing magistrate hearings on individual basis instead of just taking care of the entire community. It's a bigger problem. They're actually going case by case, which to me shouldn't be happening that way, especially since the last meeting with the county commissioners, they said that they would offer some type of permit for those who were already here, kind of like a grandfathering option without it being a grandfather, and since they said that couldn't. However, they put that completely on hold due to litigation.
Mm. Now, you mentioned your friend who's been parking on her property for 20-some-odd years here. Have you talked to some of the other truckers there in your community? And if so, what are they saying about this?
Everybody is pretty devastated. A lot of people have debt, and they're scared. They don't know where to go. Like I mentioned, it's not a simple decision that you're like, okay, I'm not allowed here, let's go somewhere else. That's not the case. It's not as easy as it sounds. It's actually kind of like looking for the impossible spot. You're not able to find it. I actually have another friend that I've been speaking to. She already owes the county $40,000, and she doesn't know what to do.
Is there anything else that you want to add, or you think people need to know about this situation?
I think that it's important that we all realize that truckers are what moves our nation, and we're important. We need help, and that's all we're asking for. We've been asking for the past 5 years for the county to listen and at least provide those who are already here some type of solution. However, that just keeps getting pushed down, and nothing gets resolved. I just really hope that whatever comes out of this litigation will help us all. And if we could avoid litigation in total, it would even be better, because that's all going to come out of our taxes anyhow.
That was Natalia Melian of Loxahatchee, Florida, talking about a situation she and her husband face, along with many other residents who run trucking operations there, after the town acted to prohibit truckers from parking their rigs at their home. If you want to make your voice heard on any of the issues we discuss here on the show, you should call the people who represent you in Washington, D.C. To call any member of Congress, all you have to do is dial the U.S. Capitol switchboard. That phone number is 202-224-3121. Provide the operator your zip code, and they can connect you directly to the office of your senators or your U.S. congressman. Again, that phone number is 202-224-3121. 822-424-3121. And of course, you can write a letter that goes to all three of those people by using the website fightingfortruckers.com. That's our program for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.